Доброго ранку.
Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our meeting. I also welcome our viewers online. I'm Alina Forlova from the Ukraine Media Center. We are starting today's with a very important topic about the fight of disinformation and information influences. We'll work in English, so if anyone needs translation, please take the headsets and you'll get the simultaneous translation.
And as I said, we will start from this day from very important topic, and we will speak about disinformation, and because it's not only Ukraine in today's world which is suffering from such a harsh attacks from Russia trying to manipulate and use active measures to influence political life, social life, and win this war. We also had such an experience with our partners before. So the session would be about coordinating strategies and sharing best practices, Croatia fight against Russian propaganda and disinformation. And I'm very pleased to welcome here in Media Center Ukraine our two participants who will share their experience and speak about how Croatia passed through one of the most difficult times with informational influence. Professor Gordan Akrap, Vice-Rector, Croatia Defense and Security University. Zdravko, Jakop, former State Secretary, Ministry of Defense of Croatia, Croatia's Defense and Security University. And we also expect in a little bit later Anica Djamić, Ambassador of the Republic of Croatia to Ukraine. She will join us a little bit later. So probably let's start from your introduction of how the Croatia, what is the experience and what it was like working here with your Ukrainian colleagues, and I know that you visited a conference here and probably had a lot of discussions. Tell us more about background, about disinformation which Croatia passed through and how you manage it in the past and how you manage it now.
Well, thank you very much, Alina. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to my friend Vyacheslav and to our Ukrainian colleagues that allow us here to come here to share our experiences and knowledge, information and knowledge with you, because now you are more or less in a similar situation that we were 35 years ago. What we did, for example, there are quite a lot of similarities and differences between our two wars, our war for independence and your war for sovereignty and territorial integrity, just like ours. One of the similarities are intensive activities against the enemy's information or disinformation campaigns. Briefly, what I can say before I'm going to give you a presentation. Presentation is quite long, but because on a paper, on a PowerPoint, because I would like to leave it to my friends, not to be necessary to write a little bit more later. But I will switch it. I will try to stick it to 20 minutes. For example, it was very, very tough for us, especially in 1990, 91, and middle of 92, where we were in information defense situation very intensively. We were following the trends. It was very, very hard to control over the information narrative and to shape the information environment. But we were focused to learn very fast. We were without any right to make mistakes, and due to the help of our president and the organization of intelligence community and the Homeland Security system that we established, we didn't call it at that time, we reached the position in somewhere in the mid-93 that we become equal to Serbian and pro-Serbian propaganda and narratives and disinformation within the framework of our Homeland War for Independence, until the position that in 95, when we liberated most of the occupied part of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, we reached the position of information superiority. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why we did it, because of the very intensive, strong and efficient intelligence, because we were able to monitor the phone communication of the President Milosevic from Serbia and President of the Presidency of Bosnia, Ali Izetbegovic. You can try to imagine what will be your intelligence, strategic intelligence asset if you could do it now against your aggressor. But briefly, I would like to just to say, more or less, you all know that we are living in a physical domain, and all data and information that we are collecting from physical domain from the world around us. We are interpreting it within our information system, and then within our cognitive apparatus or cognitive abilities, we are making decision-making process. Basically, that's basically why the disinformations are attacking the decision-making process, and they are very, very important because of the people who are disinformed can make different and fake and false decisions, and if they make false decisions, sometimes it's very terrible. What we decided briefly and what we learned is that we were fighting for information that we need to acquire in order to bring up the strategic decisions. We were fighting with existing information in order to reach the new ones. We were fighting against the enemy information, disinformation, and what we were doing also, we tried to protect our informations and our information system. Without fulfill all of those 4 pillars of information supremacy condition, it's very hard to fight against the enemy's information activities. So this is briefly just difference between the disinformation and malinformation, but this is something what is very important. We tend to neglect this fact. This is from my former chief of intelligence and my PhD mentor. He wrote 2 theorems of disinformation. The one, he said, those who received and accept disinformation as true, they are ready to accept all those disinformation as a fact and all those consequences as a fact, and vice versa. If you accept and receive information as a lie, then this means that all the consequences are also going to be a negative for you. So this is one of the main reasons why we have to fight against disinformation. In many cases, the Serbian disinformation activities against us in our homeland war were quite similar with the Russian disinformation activities that you are suffering now. The methods are similar, but the communication channels are different due to the fact that at our time the cyberspace was not so developed. It was not so intensive, especially the social networks campaigns and social network abilities, or the mobile application communication platforms. But at that time, it's a deficit, but it's also benefit sometimes, because sometimes you can use the enemy's energy for yourself, for your profit. And that's the way, what I said in the beginning. What we were facing in the beginning of our homeland war for independence, we were following the trends of the information aggressor. In end 92, beginning of 93, we became the ones who defined the trends. We defined the topics. That means, yes, we were fighting against the enemy with disinformations also. We did it, and we were very successful. Most of their disinformation that they published and placed in our information, public knowledge corps, we defined it. Many of them that we set up and sent to the Serbian information environment, they did not yet discover it. We know it because I was a part of this creation process. So when I'm going to speak briefly later about the modern times, the importance of the Russian and pro-Russian, Serbian, pro-Serbian information, disinformation narratives against the Croatia and Western Balkan states, especially against the Montenegro. And then I will try to give you one of the reasons why Montenegro, despite the fact that it's a country with 650,000 people, is one of the very crucial states for the future of Ukraine. I'll tell you later why. This is the Serbian world. As you can see here, we have 5 countries plus Serbia 6, and you can see here 4 countries. From left, Bosnia and Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Kosovo and Montenegro, all seen as a part of the Serbian world. You know, it's a quite similar situation, like Ukraine is a part of the Russian world.
Yeah.
So this is something that we are facing also. So I just briefly would like to share it in 3 parts. So it's our homeland war from 1990 up to 96, up to the before 1990, then second phase during 96, and after the homeland war. So just for you to know, when we took the power in 1990, we were not the officially recognized state. The government, the Yugoslav People Army ethnic composition was quite informed in favor for Serbs and Montenegrins. They were, as you can see, more than double was number of Serbs and Montenegrins in Yugoslav People Army, especially in the level of officers, than the Croats. It was very important. Second, the only repressive system that we have on our position, that's the ambassador, was the state security service within the Croatia. Croatia, there was 78% of Croats within the state security service, but there was 78% of Croats within the Croatia. but only 51% of Croats within the state security service. So we have also institutions against us, very deeply divided. So there was quite a lot of prejudices about Yugoslavia that we were facing with. So the Yugoslavia is a stable country, democratic country. It's not a Stalin Russia. It's nothing. It's full of democracy. All national questions were solved. The existence of hatred between Croats, Serbian, and Bosniak Muslims, but it was a fake, because what we were faced in the 90s, that we have to fight against the enemy adversaries in 4 different chessboards that were connected and integrated in a way that wrong move in one chessboard caused the negative consequences on the others. So we have only one kinetic chessboard. So it was a war. But we will have to fight on 3 different fights. Information security, influence operations, internal cohesion, unity of the people. Without that support, without that sense and the motivation to fight, organization to fight, and willingness to fight, it was not possible for us to win. And diplomacy. So as you can see, 3 of those chessboards were based on information. First phases of the war, it was not based on information as it was necessary, but in 94, 95, especially when General Jakop was, as he was a commander of artillery, he knew what does it mean, intelligence and information. I will give you briefly the results of our counterintelligence activities, because we were very successful that we arrested lots of Serbian agents and military agents that were part of the social and social structure, information, media, cultural structures within the Croatia from 1980s up to 1992. And they confessed a lot. So I just choose few examples and few narratives that they won't try to share against us. At that time, we did not have a social network, as I said, but we were faced with lots of leaflets, lots of propaganda, paper activities that wanted to change the narratives, that wanted to share the defenders, volunteers, to fight them against the government. So these are just a few key messages that they try to achieve. Divide population, divide them within the society, promote inter-Croatian divisions, to promote hatred between, for example, Croats from Dalmatia to Croats within the Zagreb area, then people from the Croats from Bosnia and Herzegovina against the Croats in the other side, then establishing media outlets within the Serbia and outside of Serbia that can be used for information laundering. Because at that time, just like now, because of the cyberspace, it's very important to recognize the information laundering activities. That means send and decide and distribute this information in, for example, let's say in Australian news or Australian media outlets in web or something, and then copy paste it in your information. I said, it's not us, it's Australians. So it's some kind of information laundering. So causing and investing the pro-Yugoslavian, pro-Serbian investment, placing this information in many other things, initiating, introducing the regionalism activity. So, for example, to support creation of Istrianism or Slavonianism or Dalmatianism within the Croatia as a separate ethnic communities. So it was just many different things. One of the most important was to set and to try to describe to foreign audiences that Croatia, especially modern Croatia, is a just continuity of the Ustasha state from the Second World War. Something like it's happening in Ukraine. You know this famous Putin story, we are fighting against the Nazis.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Just like in your case, just like in our case. Our President Tudjman was one of the last generals of the partisan army that was in the leadership in the 90s. So there was nothing such like that. But it was a positive and a successful way to disinform the other population. How to do it? Basically, and in core process of this disinformation activity is influencing this decision-making process. You can decide to influence it in 2 different ways. Influencing the content of decisions or time management. Because excellent decision brought 5 minutes later or 5 minutes before can make a significant difference, especially in the times of war. So we knew what we did, what we tried to do it, when we were not able to influence decision-making process by the content, we tried and we were quite a lot of successful to influence the time management of decision-making process, to postpone decisions. It was very important. And that's one of the reasons why we are able to recognize, why we were able to recognize many disinformation activities, because we were conducting them, and we were, in the same time, we have groups that were fighting against those disinformations in a government level, and especially within the intelligence at that time. Also, what is very important, useful idiots, what Lenny said. We had, you will have in future, quite a lot of people who are not going to be aware of the fact that they are spreading disinformation because of many different reasons. And this is going to be one of the most dangerous activities, how to say to your people, your population, be aware that you are spreading the pro-Russian and Russian narrative that goes against our key national interest. For example, what we saw, especially in 94, 95, I'm not going to mention who did it, but there was a lot of opinion polls in Croatia in 94, 95. What are the basic system of values, beliefs and principles that Croatian people believes on? And it was found every time. It's a Croatian armed forces, Catholic Church in Croatia, and President Tudjman. And through the time, we saw and we noticed how we were faced with different influence operations in order to divide society, to turn off population from our from armed forces, and to satanize the Catholic Church in Croatia. Because Catholic Church in Croatia was a keeper of our identity during Yugoslavia, our religion, our language, our history, and defining our future that we want to become part of the West, not go with Belgrade to Moscow. And that was one of the reasons why the church was attacked. On the other side, the President Tudjman was trying to be discredited as a person, as a scientist, historian, and as a statesman. Sometimes it was with lots of results. Let's say, for example, this is a copy of the paper from the Serbia that mentioned that Croatian generals mentioned that Tudjman and Milosevic 42 times met each other in order to divide Bosnia and Herzegovina and to arrange a war between Serbs and Croats. So there was not a Serbo-Croatian war. This is not Ukrainian-Russian war. This is a Russian aggression against Ukraine. It was in our case also. Yugoslavian, Serbian, and Montenegrin aggression against Croatia. The fact is, he mentioned here 40 meetings. There were 48 meetings. Only once they were together. Not alone. But it was a Croatian-Serbian delegation meeting in Serbia and Karađorđevo. All other 47 times, they did not speak to each other. There was a meetings of the presidency of Yugoslavia, international community arrangements, negotiation process. So yes, it was 48 times, but only once they spoke directly to each other. All 47 times they speak on the round table or via the mediators. Second thing, when the president, one of our presidents after him came, he said there was a special black phone in the office of the president that is evidence that President Tudjman agreed and decided to arrange the war, aggression of Serbia to Croatia with President Milosevic. It's a fake news. Because I had this black phone in my office because I told you what I was at that time. It was a secret communication channel that we received from one of our partners in order that we make try to close the information that were surrounding between us. Because still at that time, from the beginning of 91, we were able to monitor and to have a surveillance of the President Milosevic communication. There are a few examples here about the disinformation examples during the Battle of Vukovar, because this was the most efficient time where disinformations were placed in the Croatian information space. I wrote here, just for friends to know it, chronology of the title of the papers that were introduction to the massacre of the Croatian defenders who were arrested and who were found wounded in Vukovar hospital. It's just, you can see the way how they prepare their society for massacre and for approval to kill few hundred persons without judgment, without anything, just real massacre. The other things, what they wanted to do is to break morale of the defenders, both General Jakop and I. We are war veterans. We were members of our armed forces from the day zero up to the last one. He's retired few weeks ago. I was retired few years ago. And what they tried to do, to divide, because it was a very tough situation. They controlled the information environment at that time, and they tried to divide defenders of Vukovar from the political Zagreb, decision makers and the president. And they were almost successful, because they forced them, there was let's say, useful idiots, they even tried to assassinate President Tudjman. They tried to do it twice in a very short time. President Tudjman gave the pardon to all of them. No one of them was arrested. We were ready to eliminate them, to present and to preserve the president. He said, no, don't do anything. And then we spoke to them, and then they returned back and continue to fight with us. So these are some of the things, and some reports and information about the major information shaping persons who try to shape the information environment in Croatia and outside of Croatia, so just to see what was going on. I told you, what I will briefly finish. So this is what they try to do, how to do it, how to discredit, how to satanize Croatia, how to import those kind of things. For example, one of the most important things, and I think you are going to face very soon with this, it's a defenders and veterans population rights. Mm-hmm. For example, it was a still dispute in some media about the veterans' rights and their retirements. And we were able to notice how they tried to shape and to divide the veteran population according to different political spheres and different political influences, to divide them and to tell them on one side, well, the society does not recognize you, society and state or government treated you terrible, you have a very low pension funds, but you deserve it much more because you were ready to fight and to die for your country. On the other side, they place this information and the information in the public medias. Well, to all those non-fighters, there are too much fake invalids. There are too much fake volunteers and fake dependents. They have too higher pensions. They have too much rights than the usual people who went to retirement have. And it was a very, very strong decision. We solved it, fortunately. We make a braces to solve those questions because the minister of vice prime minister of our government is a famous war general. And he took, with the help of many of us who were part of this system, who know how to recognize it, he took this burden on his chest, and he is doing very, very well with this. I just wanted, these are a few examples how, for example, it was recently tried to influence the election process. We don't have a time. But I would like to ask you a question. May I give you 3 minutes more?
Yeah.
Do you know why, does anybody can tell me why Montenegro might be key importance for Ukraine? Nevertheless, that you don't think about it. Do you have an idea? Does anybody have an idea? Why you, especially you Ukrainians, have to take care of what is going on in Montenegro?
Колеги, якщо в когось є бажання доєднатися, будь ласка.
If anyone wants to join, please do.
Clear answer, because yes, especially within the war, you're more looking inside like your country, and direct your visible partners more than analyze the geopolitics if you are not an expert in that.
Let's say on this way, with my Ukrainian friends that I'm working together within the NATO structure since several years, and with Ukrainian friends from before that life, I know that you were occupied with your area of interest, primarily because it's Russia on the other side. But all of you like to join the NATO. This is 110%. I think there is a unity of the efforts of Ukraine to join the NATO. Decisions within NATO are brought by consensus. Montenegro is an ally within the NATO. Montenegro is a state with 600,000+ persons. Due to the very efficient influence operations conducted by Russian, pro-Russian, Serbian and pro-Serbian vectors of attack I will show you. They managed to control the Montenegro government and presidency. They control, for example, this is you see the Russian flag, Serbian flag with Montenegrin coat of arms. This is what you can see on the streets of Montenegro. It's written, you are the only one for the freedom that remain to become the Serbian nation. Second, the huge quantity of media, web media, online media, the many other printed media, TV media, are spreading clear pro-Serbian, pro-Russian narrative. Second, these are the demonstrations within the Montenegro with Serbian flag and mentioning that Montenegro is a Serbian Sparta. I know from 91 when they mentioned that Dubrovnik is a Serbian Athens, and it finished like this, shelling the Dubrovnik. What they said at that time, no, we are not doing that. We are not shelling the Dubrovnik. It's inter-Croatian battle. It's Hossis fighting against the National Guards, and then the Croats try to organize attack to Montenegro from Montenegro. So briefly, Montenegro is a society with 650,000 people. Serbians took fully control of the Serbia. This is the most famous title of the paper in Serbian Informer, published on first day of Russian full-scale invasion. Ukraine attacks Russia. And if you can see the narratives in Serbia and in Montenegro, similar like what is going on, what is publishing around, copy-paste of the Russian narrative. Wagner Group, Serbian heroes. Serbs in Montenegro are just like Russians in Ukraine. I wanted just to give you we are taking care about it because of us, because that makes Montenegro unstable as a NATO ally, but because of the fact that Russia is now on the Adriatic. These are the vectors of Russian influence in Montenegro and Serbian influence in Montenegro. You can see the activities of Serbian Orthodox Church in Montenegro. The role of Serbian Orthodox Church in Montenegro is similar like Russian here in Ukraine. They lead the protest against the government, and they were able to run and to change the identity of the Montenegro. These are the results of the information activity, so we have clear results. You can see the census. 90% of Montenegrins in 1948. In 2021, difference is lower. Last year there was a census. 6 months ago, they cannot count 650,000 people. They're waiting that they pass the bill that will allow between 25 and 30,000 Serbs who lived in Montenegro during Yugoslavian time to acquire Serbian Montenegrin citizenship. That means that those numbers will turn off. That means that all Serbs will vote for the Serbian political party, read Russians. Some of the Montenegrins, by the influence of the Serbian Orthodox Church, will vote for them also. And then we are going to have a NATO ally with a clear pro-Russian and pro-Serbian government. And you know what is going to be their decision when there is going to be on the table, is Ukraine is going to become in any way part of the NATO structure. And that's the challenge. This is the changes of religiousness in Montenegro. We can see the high rise of the Orthodox believers rise here on the right side. Then we can see the high rise of the pro-Serbian efforts. So what I just would like to finish the conclusions. What we learn from outside, you have to be first. You have to define narratives. It's hard, but it's valuable to do it. You have to be fast, you have to be honest, don't lie. And time management is very, very important. I like the American football. Time management in the fourth quarter, the last 4 minutes, can decide are you going to win the ring or you are going to lose everything, become the loser for all of history. So what we have to do, developing the societal resilience. Because in present and future challenges and threats, there is not only army. Army is not sufficient to fight against them. Army needs to have help from all of the society. Intelligence. We created completely new intelligence apparatus in new modern Croatia in 91-92. It was a huge step for us, and we were very, very successful in fighting against disinformation and disturbing the enemy decision-making process. So this is kind of things. And I would like to thank you once more. Thank you for the patience. Sorry for...
You almost ideally fit the time, and thank you so much. It's really interesting. Do you want to add something before we start with questions?
Thank you very much for that possibility. First of all, welcome to our ambassador, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I will say friends. My intention is just not to clarify that what was mentioned from the side of my friend, but just take or just say few words in which condition we were fighting in the front line when they're fighting hybrid war. Let us say in the beginning of the war of Croatia, we were not recognized under the UN. You are recognized. In the same time, we were without any military equipment because Yugoslav army was that time fourth army when we are calculating on the quantity, not quality, fourth army in Europe. And they pick up all the, let us say, Kalashnikovs and all other things from our storages, from territorial units in that time, and bring with them to Serbia and Montenegro, which my colleague mentioned. Also, we were without some, let us say, facilities for training for the military. And as you know, in that time we were under the embargo. It means we were dependent of ourselves. It was necessary to find solution. There was no another solution that win in that war. And it means that we establish, as they are established that structure regarding the fight under the hybrid, let us say, attack. We were very, very intensive to establish the units, to find solution how to equip that units under the embargo process, and how to find solution to deliver, right, 25%, even more than 25% of our territory, which was occupied. I just want to say that it was really difficult, but we find solution. From my perspective, I say that it's the most important from the people, from the nation, that they are fighting for right things. It's possible to have some casualties. You will lose the battle, you will lose the people, but you cannot lose your heart. That's the most important thing. And as I mentioned, in the beginning we start with 0. We just have a reserve of the police because it wasn't allowed to Croatia to have armed forces. But on the end, when we, let us say, had the biggest actions and operations, most famous was Storm, we were able to mobilize up to 250,000 people. Means that's quite big percentage of our population if you are counting that we are 4 million. And we were able to have offensive operation. We were first in that region or area with full professional armed forces. I spent or I serve in that kind of the force or units for during the wartime all the time. And we were very young. I usually say that I was 30 years younger, but also 30 kilos lighter in that time. It means that our units were very young. Average in my units, in full professional brigade, I was one of the older because I started as soldier and finished my career as state secretary, but before that I was also Minister of Defense, and in that capacity also I was here last year. Average was 21, 22 years of the brigade. That was for full professional brigade. That brigade which were mobilized, of course, that average was a little bit higher, but not too much. And from the capacity which I serve for my country in the Ministry of Defense, I could tell you that Croatia supported you from the beginning, from 2020, and we will continue that as a country to support you also in the future, in a way which you will need. In every field, but especially in the way which you will need, because we have our representative that we are very much cooperate with that. Our Prime Minister was here just a few days ago, and really we are very proud that we could support you. There are many reasons for that, but as I mentioned, we were under the embargo, but you supported us in that time. You were one of the country who recognize us and accept us as international, let us say, state in the very beginning between few countries. It means that really that's somehow our obligation to us that we will continue that. Up to now, I will just mention that from the defense and security, let us say, area, we support Ukraine with more than 190 millions of euros with military equipment, I will say, howitzer systems, guns, even helicopters and other things. And we are also very much to cooperate with our partners, because in the meantime, from the country which was not recognized in 90s from United Nations, we became full member of the NATO, we became full member of European Union, we are part of Schengen, and we have euro currency and so on. It means that now really situation is quite different than in that time. I just wanted to say that we always support Ukraine, not just on bilateral level, but also in all possible levels in Brussels under the European Union, NATO, and other organizations where it's possible. In cooperation with you, but sometimes we decide also that we will take, let us say, lead nation as lead nation to try to find solution, the best possible solution for you. For the end, I really wish you personally all the best, and also to your country all the best.
Thank you,
and
General.
I am open for any kind of the question.
And thank you, of course.
I am professor somehow.
Yeah.
No. It's possible.
Okay,
to ask.
Professor. And thank you for Croatian Nation for support, really. And the information which you gave is like a really very similar to what we're passing by now. But I would like to ask the few questions before I will give the floor for our participants also to ask the questions. So the one of the trends we've been observing here, and you actually mentioned that in the beginning of our war, like 10 years ago, Russia more created disinformation and tried to make like fakes, complete fakes, and push them through society, and therefore to influence the situation. What we see now, that we don't face so many obvious fakes. Mainly what we have, this is some kind of internal problems or gaps, like with, for example, issues with veterans, which you mentioned, where Russia tried to increase the size of the problem to influence on different dimension of these problems. And this is something which is much more difficult to identify and much more difficult to cope with in informational space. So what is your experience in that? How you were managing these issues, which were some kind of increased by Serbian and Russian propaganda in that time, and how you do it now?
Well, at that time, I told you, we have a different media environment. So media communication channels were completely different than now, but in a way of the communication channels. But on another way, it was quite similar because of the consequences, because we were not able, when, for example, the Serbs publish information in Austrian or Bosnia and Herzegovina or media, or some in France or UK or Netherlands, then they said, okay, but it's not us. Or even sometimes they did not copy-paste those informations within the Serbian information environment, then their Trabants, the useful idiots, copy-paste it from the other. For example, yes, it was written by Reuters or by France Press, etc. And then when you see who the author is, it's a Serbian person. Person from Serbia is talking about the Croatia in the foreign media outlets, sending this information via second channel back to the Croatia, and some useful idiots are said, yes, but this is not this is a true story, and then start to initiate it. At that time, it was very, very important to have a reliable intelligence community that was able to recognize things. I told you, it's a difference. It was a little bit different than now. And we always informed the president, prime minister, and responsible ministers, and they tried to find a consensus behind the closed doors with major opposition parties, those who were not far left and who were not far right. And that was a way how to first brought up the one voice policy on a strategic level according to the key national interests of the society. And then communication with the most important chief editors of the key media outlets in Croatia. So it was a process where it was very important to build up the mutual trust between the institutions responsible for identification of the various forms of enemy attacking activities. On one side, second side, decision makers. Third one, key persons from the key media that shape the information environment within the Croatia, and then step by step with outside. In the next phase, communication on the foreign policy. And sending the information to those countries. Yes, we respect the freedom, but you have to know this is this information that will turn against you and later. So we were trying to do it it was the first way, first activities. Second one, we were fighting with examples. We were fighting with facts. I will give you one example. We were expecting the media campaign against the Bosnian Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina in '98, few days before the elections in Bosnia and Herzegovina, against the leading representatives of Bosnia and Herzegovina Croats. We have intelligence and we knew it. We were prepared to this publication of this document. We almost know the content of it. As soon as it was published, in few hours, it was a huge reaction by the Bosnian Muslim and Bosnian Serb and Serbian media in those countries. A few hours later, we published the original documents of the intelligence agency who organized, who planned, organized, conducted this information operation, who signed it, who were the operatives, who from international community worked with them, why they worked with them, how they were paid, where they were paid. The balloon was broken. That's the way how to solve it. It's not there is no simple and unified way of disinformation activities. Therefore, the answer cannot be unified and same in every cases. We are different people, and there are different activities, modus operandi. Disinformation activities, especially now as a part of the hybrid threats, are shaping and changing the way of their appearance. And therefore, the system that is fighting against him has to be very flexible and, as I said, very fast, very honest, equipped with skillful and knowledgeable people who can react first and fast and honest with the support with intelligence, because without intelligence is upgraded knowledge. And that's what you need in fighting disinformation.
Yeah, that's also something which, you focused a few times, that actually the leadership in these debunking activities was with intelligence services and with the state authorities. We also have now a very active role of the intelligence and state, but we also have a huge already grassroots organizations who are debunking disinformation. And actually in disinformation field, we have this non-speakable cooperation between, it's not like agreed, but it's somehow felt by different organizations, non-governmental, governmental, where all the parts are taking their role. And I think that this could be interesting for Ukrainian side, how the state managed to leadership, this leadership, and how you build the trust with the society, because, intelligence is intelligence. It's always a little bit of fear and some kind of suspicion to the intelligence services. But how you build up this trust with society so you can lead this activity and people trust it, what you said about the real truth.
Well, building up, as you might notice, I'm coming from the intelligence. Yeah. I was retired 7 years ago, and I was a director of the foreign operation of foreign intelligence, and I told you I was a chief coordinator of intelligence community during the war. So we know what we did. I know what we did, what we were working. Developing the mutual trust between the population, decision makers on one side, and intelligence is that the intelligence as a document pass the test of time, that it was honest, reliable, verifiable, and acquired on time. Second, let's come back to the present situation. What we noticed several years ago when first fact-checking organization appeared in Croatia, they were biased, they were tendentious, and they wanted to have exclusive right to a truth. What we saw was a group of the people who were not experts, I don't want to say that because now I'm a professor, university professor, that I know much more than the others. I know huge quantity of knowledge that I'm missing. But I cannot speak about the chemistry. I'm not chemist. And therefore, most of those people were not able. One person was able to discuss, for example, about the health injuries, the policy, the intelligence, the chemistry, the biology, about everything. And that's a problem. That's a problem for a challenge. Because if they signed as a fact checker, people start to trust them. That's the government noticed that we have a rise of the fact checkers that are not real fact checkers. And I'm very pleased that the government announced the tender, and my NGO that was established in 2017 when I was retired, Hybrid Warfare Research Institute, because we were a group of the retired intelligence, police, security, military officers and officials. We said, okay, we will invest our efforts, our knowledge, our experience, our connections on national and international level in fighting against disinformation in future in Croatia. And now we became official fact checker for the Republic of Croatia because we went through the contest. We showed that we are experts. We know. We have the past, we have a history, relevant, verifiable, and we are fact checker for questions from defense and security point of view on national, international level. And one of the reasons why I asked my friend Vyacheslav to come here is try to connect and to sign the memorandum of agreement in future of understanding with a similar, reliable and relevant fact-checking organization in Ukraine in order to come and fight. Because we cannot fight anymore alone against the disinformation. They spread around the world in a moment. As I showed you, and there are much more details inside than some of my papers and some of our analysis, so many Russian disinformations are coming to Croatia via second side or third side, also in Montenegro, in Serbia, in Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. We can recognize them, most of them, but we need help from Ukrainians because you know that much more. On the other side, we can help you in order to realize and to help to see what is going on, what is the Russian and pro-Russian, Serbian, pro-Serbian modus operandi in other areas. Because tomorrow, you will have to protect your national interests not only in Ukraine. I don't want to say in neighboring countries, but you will have to protect your interest in a media environment in many countries, areas that will be connected with Ukrainian information space. So this is the way how to try to do it now. Because I said, we cannot fight against the modern hybrid threats and emerging security challenges without the role of society. Academia, NGO, media, education, population. I was very pleased yesterday when I saw when we were with our friends Vyacheslav in St. Sophia Church. Many youngsters, many students were brought there to show them what is your history. So that you cut off with the Russian narratives, Russian ideology, the politics that we were faced recently in Croatia when the parliament brought the law to protect Croatian language. There was quite a lot of journalists, far left orientation. Why we are protecting our law? Who's protecting law? Language. Language. So language is a crucial part of the identity. But their idea is, well, this is the same language, similar language. We speak in the same language. No, it's not. We speak Croatian. My children are grown. They're born after the war. They understand part of the Serbian language. Not everything. We know it because we lived at that time. So this is one of the things that has to be done in future because you have to keep your identity. And these informations, if they are successful to shape your identity questions, shape your values, beliefs, your position toward your history, your language.
Okay, let's start from the questions from audience, and please do not forget to name yourself.
My name is Vyacheslav. Dear Croatian colleagues, dear friends, I appreciate you for coming here, as well all Ukrainians appreciate you for your support in our struggle against Russia. Thank you for your aircraft, helicopters, ammunition, weapons, anti-mine equipment, etc., etc. As well, thank you for your support in diplomatic sphere, in informational sphere. Professor dear Gordan, as usual, your presentation is very informative with deep analysis in this sphere. As General Jakop said, that war in informational sphere, informational war is part of hybrid war. As war has the offensive and defensive operation. And we know that without offensive operation, we will not reach our victory, such as one of the last successful operation is the offensive operation in Kursk region. So my question is, do you have some recommendation of offensive operation informational sphere? Please, thank you.
We spoke about some things that I gave him. I told him some experiences that are not so able to share it with too much. But let me give you something else. Let me tell you something else. Recently I was in one meeting within the NATO structure and we spoke about some things, and my comment was we have to do common things. First, let's divide the struggle and fight for Ukrainian sovereignty in two different fields. Kinetic and non-kinetic. This is much more easier. you have to fight in a kinetic field with the support of your friends and partners. But the most important element in fighting in non-kinetic area against the Russians and any future aggressor, it's us. You cannot run this battle, but you can be, and you have to be very important stone in the mosaic of non-kinetic fight, because we were not allowed in '95 to beat the Serbian world grand strategy. On October 28, 95, we were stopped in front of the city of Banja Luka in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We were ordered to stop by international community because they were afraid if we liberate completely Bosnia and Herzegovina at the time, that the majority of Serbs from Bosnia and Herzegovina will go to Serbia and overthrow the Milosevic from the government. They were not sure who's going to come to the power, any similarity.
Yeah, specifically, yes.
And then they stop us. Because they want to continue conversation with Milosevic, they said, okay, he was a banker, he was a nationalist, wrong premises, and we can make a deal with him. Because of that fact, the Serbian great strategy idea, transformed now and changed the name in the Serbian world, remained live. And still there are the challenges and problems and cause of the huge quantity of problems for us in Croatia. We don't afraid about their weapons, and because we know if they try to think to attack us, they will be in very bad position. But their information operations are very, very sensitive. So that's the same thing now. We have to beat Putin's Russia grand strategy. If we allow Putinism to continue to live in a political domain in Russia, in 15, 20 years, there will be another victim, maybe again Ukraine, maybe somewhere else. And that's what we have to do. I will give the answer to part of the Vyacheslav questions. We engaged intensive non-kinetic efforts in our kinetic operations. We were able, for example, in Operation Storm, we did not destroy the communication channels that allow Serbian troops to communicate between them. We took control of them. Don't destroy them. Don't allow the opponent, adversary to be creative to find another ways of communications. Take control, manage them. Insert this information on a different ways into their information environment and shape it according to your, and influence the will to defend. For example, I forget that to mention, I wrote it. One of the worst things that happens to us was a so-called peace movement within Croatia, supported by some of our Western friends. Well, let's be honest, let's be open, let's be friendly. This is just a war. It's not significant war. We have to be friendly. We don't need to be violent. Don't fight to decrease the will of society to resist. And we very easily find the evidences they were supported and financed by the Serbia and by some other players in the international community. And come back to the war operations. How sufficient we were after the Operation Storm. We had several operations within the Bosnia and Herzegovina. We almost never, I don't want to say never, hide the information that we are preparing operations, but a few times we said, okay, we sent on open communication channels and we know that they were listening. Well, tomorrow we are going to come to you. It's just a motto of your Special Operations Force. I'm going to come to you. And we said, we are going to come tomorrow to you. You have two choices. You have a right to decide about your future. Are you going to leave and stay alive? Or you are going to wait for us? But please, tell us how many of you are so that we can bring enough black bags for you. And it worked. The best battle that we won was a battle that we did not use kinetic weapons. It's a Chariots of Fire, peaceful reintegration of the Croatian Danube area. I hope, and I strongly believe, that Donetsk and Luhansk are going to be at least part of this process what we did in our. It was a tough. We have to eat some frogs, but we did it. Because 50 years in the life of a state is nothing in order to preserve 10,000 young people's lives. I was there when we had after the Operation Storm. Population was so proud, so strong, so biased. Yes, we can do it. To go to use military to liberate Croatia. President asked one of the generals to describe the plan of operation. And general said how to do it, where to do it, blah, 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 blah. And the president asked one question, President Tuđman. General, what are your estimates about the victims? And he said, because between 1,100 and 1,200 dead people on our side, between 5 and 5.5 thousand on Serbian side, and 3.5 up to 4 times multiplied of wounded person, a little bit of missing, because it's going to be open area to fight off. But if we are going to, and it looks like that we will be necessary to enter to the Serbia, the number will be doubled. And President said, we don't have so much people that we can count that we are going to allow to us to lose so much young people. And he gave the order to military intelligence, do everything in order to prepare much more efficient operations to be conducted if it's going to be necessary. And then he gave the order to intelligence and foreign minister, prepare international community for a peaceful integration of the area. And then there was a struggle within the diplomatic corps, but this is something else. But we did also with information operations, influence operations. We did it, we saw it. But as I said, the most important is the lives of the people. And 50 years in the life of a state is nothing.
You want to add something, Professor?
Yeah, it was my intention to add, but on the end of the speech of my colleague, he mentioned what I wanted to mention, that we were waiting for 5 years for the final, the biggest operations for the liberation of Croatia with power, with that kinetic energy. And I will say that I took part of more or less all the operation which was mentioned from my colleague, and I was also in the team for preparing that operation, which finished with peace reintegration of the UNAP area. I think that it's important to be strong in both capacities, that your counterpart or enemy or however will recognize that it's easier to speak with you than fight with you. It's necessary to get that level. It's not easy, but you will know where you will be ready to show that and to find results. Only you, as we were ready after 5 years.
Any questions from the audience? Lady on the left, yes, please.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative.
Can you name yourself, please?
Okay. Sonia Dimitrova Martinuk, Stop Fake. On 8th of October, I'll be holding a workshop in Podgorica on fighting disinformation in Central and Eastern Europe, and your presentation is very helpful for me. And at the end of October, I'll have the same workshop in Zagreb. We already spoke with you. Can you predict when Ukraine will start negotiations with the European Union? What narratives will be spread in Croatia, anti-Ukrainian narratives will be spread in Croatia in order to influence the government to vote against, for instance?
First, congratulations to you and Georgia, because you acquired a very, very fast status of the candidate for being European Union. We were waiting for a quite long time to receive this status, and fortunately, some people in European Union and some leaders of the European EU member states understand what does it mean for security and safety of Europe to have Ukraine within us. Because now we are members of the EU, we are allied within the NATO. I was fighting from the 1990 with the idea to join the European Union and NATO at that time. When it's going to be done, it's a tough to say, but it's a process. It's a process that needs some time, and what is most important thing that the Ukrainian society realize that the structural reforms that you will have to do, it's not for Europe, it's for you. What we did, not my generation, because I'm too old now, but my kids, my children, and the children of my children are going to benefit from those structural reforms. Is it going to be 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years? Probably it's going to be at least 5 years. It's a process. But it's important to start it, because every road starts with the first step. And you have to be honest to yourself, and you have to have enough internal courage and consensus to do necessary reforms. Second things, we, in first year, I don't want to connect this with the Russian aggression, full-scale aggression against Ukraine from 2020, but also 22, but also from 24, and other Russian malicious activities against us. So anti-Ukrainian sentiment that is trying to spread in some parts of the society is connecting with anti-Western, anti-NATO, and pro-peace activity situation. So they are not openly pro-Russians, but it's we want peace. Let's focus the Ukrainians to have negotiations. So it's not directly pro-Russian, but indirectly, yes. I'm quite often in our media, unfortunately. And many people who are in public media said, well, Ukraine should be forced, President Zelensky should be forced for negotiations with Russia. Because you can see President Putin offered peace negotiations. And every time I answer them, okay, let's think, guys, now about one thing. Our negotiation process in 30th of April, 95, our negotiation strength was so low. Serbian was so high. On the August 10, positions were changed. Serbian position, negotiation position was so low. R was incredibly high. Why? Because we engaged kinetic and non-kinetic tools of the state in order to make our negotiation process better and to change a shift, not to negotiate, to communicate. Because if you negotiate, it means that you have to partially surrender of something. But when you communicate, you are equal. It's very important to have that in mind, because one of the most important things that are very sensitive and quite often ignored is the language of symbols and symbolism. I was many times spoke in Croatian public appearances. It's not a Russia-Ukrainian war. It's not a war in Ukraine. Yes, but you can read in many papers, many articles in the West, Russia-Ukrainian war, war in Ukraine. No, you just said it was a war in Croatia. Yes, it was a war in Croatia, but who is fighting? Why is fighting? What is behind it? What are the real causes? Because in hybrid threats, if you push your enemy to deal with consequences without being able to identify the cause, you are going to win. But if you took your time, swallow a few frogs, take your time, and identify the cause, and then fight against the cause, then consequences will disappear slowly, but they will do it. So this is kind of the anti-Ukrainian interest narrative in Croatia. It's not direct pro-Russian, not direct against Ukraine, but it is. Second thing are the media outlets. There are several web pages, print media. We have a few examples of, let's say, incidents that Ukrainian citizens were part of in Croatia. I cannot tell you background because I have another capacity. I'm a member of the supervisory board to supervise the activities of our intelligence community. So in this way, I'm not allowed to speak about some things. But it was not always a similar and easy to discuss and to see those persons who did it as a useful idiots, as a false flag operations like the Nord Stream operation, or someone else. For example, our main clinical hospital in Zagreb was under cyber attack a few months ago. And then I spoke with the director and said, okay, what was going on? Try to realize. And I asked him, did they reach, because I knew this is the main hospital where 99% of the Ukrainian war veterans that are coming to Croatia are going on, have papers, identifications, informations about them, treatments, names, addresses, all those intelligence information that are important for intelligence. And Russians, we found lots of evidence that Russians did it. It was Russian hacker that hacked the most important medical institution, and I think that one of the things they were trying to collect the information about the Ukrainians in Croatia. Why? They can shape them. They can send them intelligence covered operations, and then they can provoke their activities that are not according to the law. And then few media, two things had happened, and media said, Ukrainians in Croatia did this and did that. There are other cases of criminal activities. They didn't say, but Serbs did it. But the title said, Ukrainians in Croatia did illegal activities. So, not directly, but indirectly. And that's the reason why the society, NGOs, and organization in academia has to recognize, realize, identify, and make public this is not the way how we should shape our information environment and how we have to have the relations toward the truth. I hope that you answered.
Thank you. In a few minutes we need to wrap up the session, and Ambassador, maybe you would like to say something to add somehow? Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to greet all of you and thank you for coming. I am not only pleased, I am very proud that you have such good experts from Croatia. Both of them are experienced, you could hear that, and Croatia is of course standing also with its experts next to you. I'm experienced here because I'm here since 2019, and I think that Ukraine does not need help. Ukraine needs assistance. And only Croatia, who went through this experience, can give you this assistance. So once again, thank you for coming, and we will continue to be next to you.
Thank you, Ambassador. So you have your last words, I believe. And yes, we have a lot of questions also which could be discussed about reintegration, about your experience with after-war settlement and many other things. But we're here because of disinformation, and maybe you will give some recommendations how better to build up our offensive to Russia, our activities in Europe with minor partners, with those countries in Global South which are still not very engaged in solving the issue of Russian aggression. So any recommendations would be welcomed, any observations would be welcomed.
Thank you. It's very hard to say in 1 hour what to concise these 30 years of experience and knowledge. But first, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure to be here. We were here today at the YES conference. We have yesterday and the day before quite a lot of meetings with our friends and experts here. What we would like to have to continue the communication and coordination and cooperation with the disinformation, fighting against the pro-Serbian, Russian and pro-Russian disinformation activities, not just in Ukraine, but against Ukraine. Because never forget, there are another information environments that easily transfer information, disinformation to Ukraine against Ukrainian interests in Western Balkan areas. Second, me as a Vice-Rector of university and at the same moment president of the NGO that is debunking this kind of disinformation, would like to have a official and intensive cooperation, communication with our factors within the Ukrainian society, because only together we can win. We were not able to win our war alone. No one can win any conflict, war anymore alone. And we have to identify friends, partners and allies. And we have to do it together. This is the way. Second thing, another thing is, with this idea, we initiated the Zagreb Security Forum 9 years ago in order to gather the experts from different areas in order to fight Russian and Serbian disinformation activities. We have a huge group of experts, several hundreds of experts all around Europe, but outside of the Europe, and especially young ones, because I told you I'm already almost 60. We have quite a lot of young researchers, academicians, but people from the area of expertise that are still in the government service. That they have to communicate and create the fact that society has to be educated and learned how to recognize and fight against the disinformation, how to learn that what is really disinformation, how to read the news. Because sometimes we have to read the news between the lines to understand it. Now you have to do it much more efficiently. Also, as a war veteran, General Jakop was wounded, I was not. I want to tell you, thank you very much for everything. Once more, we will come again, not just because if we are going to need to do, we will come again because of our will, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Professor?
Thank you very much. Croatia and Ukraine, they are two friendly countries with any open questions, and I really think, I believe that we could continue to support, or as Your Excellency say, to assist each other also in the future, for better future, especially for our citizens, as Akrap mentioned, for our kids. As I mentioned in the beginning, Croatia will support you also in the future, and we will try personally to find the best possible solution, and we are open for any kind of the, let us say, support or cooperation also in the future. All the best, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. So we will finalize this session, and I would like to one more time say thank you to our participants and for support which Croatia gives, which you personally gives, and remind you that we had here with us Professor Gordan Akrap and Zdravko Jakop, who are both from the Defense and Security University of Croatia, who are both veterans and who shared their experience in how to fight with disinformation and how to build up the trust within the society and partners. And I thank you to Ambassador who joined us. And with this we will finalize the session. Thank you one more time. Залишайтеся з нами. Наступна наша.
Please remain with us. Within 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, we will have another section about communication during the massive blackouts that we have now, and will probably